Hello, welcome back to my studio. This is my second channel where we dive deeper into projects. So if you can see and hear me right now, that means that I just posted a video on my main channel about volumetric projectors and using video textures to just beam light onto objects. I think it's a really cool effect, so you should check out that video. But for now, for this video, I want to kind of slow things down and I want to just go through every single thing. Excuse me, this video is going to be unedited. It's going to be just one long video file, so if you're a beginner, you will see every button I press and everything I do. If you're more of an advanced user, this is probably more like second monitor content for you, but I think it will be fun to just cover the entire process from start to finish. So in this video, we'll be creating what you can see on my screen now here, I guess. Yeah, you will be seeing that now. I can't see it because I haven't created it yet. I think I'm excited about this workflow, so hopefully what you're seeing now looks really good. Okay, so to get started, let me just enable my screencast keys so you can see my hotkeys in the corner there. So every time I use a hotkey, you can see not only the hotkey, but also what it does. Yeah, and I'm going to save my file. And I'm also gonna, I'm just having some secret stuff here. It's not secret, it's just an empty thing. So I'm not accidentally having something important there. Yeah, so the first thing I want to do is that I want to set my render engine to cycles because volumetrics are just amazing in cycles. It looks absolutely fantastic. So let's go to the render properties and then let's change the render engine from EV. It's going to say EV by default and then to cycles. And then if the device, if you want to set this to GPU but it's grayed out, you can go to edit, preferences, and then under system, you can set the cycles render devices to whatever GPU you have. So if you don't have a dedicated GPU, you will have to use none and you can't use the GPU. But if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can use CUDA or you can use optics. Optics is faster than CUDA. And then if you have an AMD GPU, you can use HIP. And if you have an Intel GPU, you can use one API. And if you're watching this on a Mac, it's going to say metal on one of these, and you can use that instead, and that will be faster. So yeah, I'm working in Blender version 5.0 today, so things might look a little bit different than I'm used to. So stick with me and we can explore this new version of Blender together. Yeah, so I'm going to use GPU compute, and I'm also going to go to my output properties. Nope, it's the render property still. If you go down here in the denoise, I want to use the GPU for the denoising as well. That is just so much faster. And then this also goes for the final render. If you're doing like low resolution images, or even better, if you're doing super high resolution images and you want to denoise them, using the GPU is just so much faster. It's crazy. Yeah, it's the difference is night and day. And also, I just tried Blender 5.0 just for like 15 seconds before I started recording. And I feel like the denoiser looks better in Blender 5.0. I'm not sure if that's placebo, if that's just, I don't know. If you know anything about that, please leave a comment and help me out figuring out that, because that just felt so weird. It looks really good, I think. Yeah, okay, and then I'm going to set my frame rate to 30 frames per second because that looks amazing, I think. And yeah, let's get started. So now we can just start out by setting our render engine, or the viewport shading to rendered. And now we can see the light. We can take this area light here, we can press G. No, this is the point light. We can press G and we can move this. And if you go Shift A and make a mesh plane, scale this up by pressing S. Now you can see that you get this shadow and we have this real-time viewport performance there. That I love it. So this entire effect is all about creating like this volumetric God ray coming from this light. So let's split our viewport in half. You can either right click down here and do a vertical split and you get up this menu. Or if you want to be faster when you're splitting your viewport, you can right click on this button here and you can go to header and you can find this super secret menu that is called move split area. And here you can see it says Control W. That's because I added a shortcut to it. So let me just remove that shortcut. Now if you right click on this secret move split area button, you can right click on it, you can go assign shortcut, and I want to do Control W. And this is not used for anything else in Blender, I think. So that means that if you want to split your viewport really fast, you can just press Control W and do this. And what's really cool about this is that if you want to merge a viewport or like a panel editor type, you can use the same hotkey. It's amazing. So if you have your mouse over here, you press Control W and you move your mouse over here, now you can see you can replace this area. Boom. So it's like this super fast hotkey, and I use this all the time. It's amazing. Okay, so let's set this back to render view, And then let's split our viewport. Oh, I want the render view to be this one. So yeah, I'm using the hotkey Z to set the render view. Yeah, Z you get to this pie menu, set it to render view. There we go. So now we have a render view over here, and I want to set this editor type to be the shader editor, because we can use shader nodes to add volumetrics to our world, so we can see the God rays coming from this light. So let's set this editor type to shader editor, and then we want to change it from object to world. And now you can see we have the background node here that goes into the world output. So let's get rid of this by pressing X, and everything gets dark or darker. And now we can go Shift A, and let's just search for volume scatter, this one. And now you can take this volume scatter node and you can plug it into the volume, not the surface, but the volume of the world output. And look at that. It looks black because it's way too thick. So let's lower the density. Ah, look at that. Now we have volumetric light in our scene. And if you're a seasoned Blender user, do you also notice that the denoiser looks better? I don't know. It feels... I like the denoiser now. And also, by the way, the video recording today should be in higher quality, because I'm using a new codec. It's not new, it's just new to me. I'm using the NVNC AV1 video encoder. This is night and day. If you're doing screen recording on your computer, you should definitely try this one, because I'm using my GPU to encode the video, and it's a lower bitrate and it looks better. It's just crazy. So this just looks super sharp. Here are my settings. I'm using a bitrate of 8 megabits per second, and the maximum bitrate is 18 megabits per second. So if I'm showing my face in full screen, or if I'm just showing soft gradients like this, then it can pump up the bitrate a little bit for that period of time. Yeah, and then these are modding settings. I got recommended using B-frame set to 3, and yeah. Basically, my goal with these settings is that I want to be able to record really long video files and keep the file size super small. Because I'm recording so much content that I don't want to... I'm not really recording that much content, but I am recording content. I'm not even recording often either. I am recording content, and sometimes that is I want the files to be small because I use Dropbox to sync stuff, and I don't want to spend my life waiting for uploads and downloads. So these produces really small video files, and it also has it is also recording in Matroska, you can see. So that means that if the video crashes, for example, the video file will still work. So that's really good. So basically my power can run out mid-recording, and I should be able to pick it up and continue. I think. I haven't tried it, but yeah. That was a really big digression. Let's get back to this. So now you can see that this volumetric it's looking a little bit like Lumos in Harry Potter. It's like it's lighting up in every direction. So I want to focus this. We want to give our light some direction. So I don't want this to be a spotlight. No, I don't want this to be a point light. I want it to be a spotlight. So if you select the light, and let's go to the object properties. Nope, the object data properties. And you set it to spot. Now you can see we have a spotlight that is pointing towards our cube instead. And I want to just disable the gizmo, so we don't have this arrow here. And look at that. Now we have this amazing looking spotlight in our scene. And if you set the transform pivot point to 3D cursor, we can rotate this around like that. And then you can right click and you can increase the light power and move up. Oh, we have a new thing there. That's nice. No, it used to be there, but now it's in the middle. I like it. Okay, so yeah, if you set it to 2000, for example, now you can see. Okay, so this entire effect is all about adding an interesting texture to this light here. And I can see that this actually has a radius of something. So yeah, I just want to delete. Yeah, it's also called light. I want it to be called spotlight. So let's just delete our light, and let's go Shift A light, and let's just add a spotlight. So now it's called spot, and it has an infinitely small radius, and we can make it a little bit brighter. Maybe 4000. Yeah, that's good. And let's take the cube and move it up by pressing G, Z, and 1 as well. Nice. Okay, so this is a good scene. Okay, nice. So now I want to add a texture to this cone of light here. And I have made a very simple web app, probably comically simple if you're really into making web apps, but let me just show you. If I go to tools.polyfior.com, here you can see you have the animated pattern generator. This is a new thing, and don't click this one. Here it is. Excuse me. This is a really cool way of just previewing an animation in real time, and then you can change things. Like you can change. Oh, I'm changing stupid settings. Yeah, here you can see it's probably lagging a little bit, so I'm gonna pause it. But you can basically change these parameters in real time. And you can export a video with as a PNG sequence, JPEG sequence, web picture sequence. I don't know who wants this, but I included it. And then a WebM video. The WebM video has a really low bitrate, and it also has some issues with iframes. Not like visual issues, but it's just super slow to work with in Blender. So I highly recommend doing PNG or JPEG. Yeah, but here you can see you have different types of patterns. So for example, if I set it to the hex pulse grid, this is the best one, I think. And then if you enable loop mode, now these parameters here will snap to certain values that will make them loop, which is really cool. So I spent a lot of time putting this together, and you can probably tell I used the large language model to do the majority of the coding here. So if you know how this works, please feel free to improve it. Yeah, this is everything. I'm gonna put this entire tool on my GitHub and license it as GPL, so you can fork it and do improvements to this if you want to. That would actually be super cool if someone who really knows how to do this could just improve this, maybe add a ton more stuff, maybe even have like a resolution button or something like that, because right now I think it exports the resolution of your like viewport here. Not entirely sure. Yeah, so I'm going to export an animated texture from this. So let's set the frame rate to 30 frames per second, and I think 4 seconds is good. Maybe if we zoom out a little bit. No, I think it looks really cool actually. Let's try 1 pulse per loop. Maybe 2. No, let's do 1. It's a little bit more like slow and it doesn't loop perfectly. Cool. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Yeah, this is good. Maybe a little bit thicker lines. Okay, so now to export this, I'm just going to export PNG sequence, and it should save to my desktop. Yeah, rendering PNG frames. This is much slower when I'm recording, by the way, so it's definitely using my GPU. Yeah, okay, so there's my... Yeah, I saved it to my desktop, so I'm going to click this folder icon. Right-click, 7-zip, extract to folder. If you don't have 7-zip, it's just 7-zip.org. And you can download it from here. Yeah. So, now on my desktop, I have this... What? Didn't it get downloaded to my desktop? Yeah, it should be on my desktop. But it's probably... Oh, wait. I have 2 monitors, so... Don't mean to brag, but no, it's just kidding. What? I don't know where it is. Anyways, we can probably find it in Blender. So if we select our spotlight here, we change our shader type back to object. And now we can click use nodes to use nodes with our light. And then here you can see we have our emission shader. And what's so cool is that now we're using nodes to control this light. So if you, for example, change the color here, it instantly responds. And then if you go to edit preferences and under add-ons, you can search for Node Wrangler. You can install this. And now if you select your emission shader, you can press Ctrl T. And that will add a texture coordinate node, mapping node, and an image texture node. And it's important that the texture coordinate node is set to UV. That happens by default. But if you want to do some funny stuff with this, make sure you're using the UV, because that is how this spotlight works. So on our image texture now, we can click open. And if we go to our desktop, we have this folder called hex pulse grid, and with the exact time of date it was saved. So if you're exporting many different types, you can just sort by name or date, and you can find the latest one. So it's a little bit easier to see because usually when you do a bunch of these, you will end up with a bunch of different folders. So it's a little bit easier. Yeah. So let's take the first one, press A to select all of them, and then open image. And look at that, now we have the video texture, and you can increase the strength. And nothing happens when we move the timeline. I forgot about that. We need to enable auto refresh on this. Yeah, look at that. That is amazing. I think that looks really cool already. And you can press play, but it will be really slow. Oh, after 120 frames, it just stops. That is because we need to set it to cyclic. So now it's actually looping. Nice. Okay, but I want to give this a little bit more of an interesting color. So let's move our cube down a little bit. And let's select our spotlight here. And I want to combine our texture here with like a gradient texture, like a procedural vector texture in Blender. Not sure if it's a vector texture, but it's procedural at least. So what you can do is you can, for example, take this color here. If you hold on Control, you can put it into the strength instead. And now it will be black and white. And if you go Shift A and search for multiply, nope, that's the wrong one. Let's just search for math and let's set it to multiply. And you pull it in between here, you can multiply the strength. So if, for example, set it to 15, now it's really strong again. And now we can add a color to this because we have isolated this. So what I would like to do is that I like to use like a gradient texture. And let me show you how this works. So perhaps we should change things. Yeah, I'm going to right click on this one and I'm going to click join right. And then I'm going to press Control W and split it in half like this. No, I want this to be render view. Yeah, because our node tree will be going sideways like this. So if we set it to shader editor now, you can see we have the nodes going sideways, which is a little bit easier to see. And then we can also see the color here. Yeah. Yeah, and also you can press N to get rid of this. Okay, so now that we have our light below here, let's add a gradient texture. So I'm going to go Shift A and search for gradient texture. And then you can take this color of the gradient and pull it into the color of the emission. And things get really dark. Yeah, let's try and select the gradient texture and press Control T. So now we get the texture coordinate node and we need to change this to UV. Yeah, okay, so now we have a linear texture here. And it might be a little bit difficult to see, so if you hold on Control and Shift, you can click on the gradient texture, and now we're previewing this gradient texture. And look at that, we can see that it's dark here, 0, and then it goes all the way to 1. So we can basically we can use this texture to have the value of 0 here and the value of 1 here. So let's use a color ramp. So you can go Shift A and just search for cramp and you will get a color ramp. And if you pull this in between here, so you can hold on Control and Shift and look at the color ramp. Now you can move these color stops and you can see that we can change what we can see of the gradient. And this is a linear gradient. If you want to be even more fancy, you can set it to a spherical gradient. And I do want to be more fancy because look at this. Now we can change the size of this circle, but it's offset a little bit. So to make this be in the correct place, you can, for example, go to the location here, go to X and Y, just, oh, my fire alarm is going out of battery soon. You can hold down, click your mouse, left mouse button here, click and hold down. So now you have X and Y selected at the same time. You can, for example, type -0.5. And look at that. Now it seems like this is in the center. Yeah, I think that's in the center. You can test this by setting it to be constant and then change the color stop. And yeah, that looks like it's in the center. And look at this. Now, if you set this to ease, for example, now we can control where we want our gradient texture to be. And this is much more powerful than just changing the light beam angle like this, because we can use this to control 2 different colors, for example, which is really powerful. So if we hold on Control and Shift and go back to our emission shader now, and we want to hold on Control and right click to bring up this knife here. Let's cut this. And let's take our gradient texture and move it to the left here. And now we want to add 2 colors. So let's go Shift A and search for RGB. Nope. Shift A, RGB, input, color attribute. Nope. You used to be able to search for RGB, so let's go. Yeah, input color. Oh yeah, it's not called RGB anymore, it's just called color. Okay, nice. So if you want to, you can set this to a color. Let's say you take this color, really vibrant one, and if you pull this into the emission now, our light will look like this, right? But if you duplicate this and you set it to this color, for example, and you hold on Control and you move it down here, now it's this color. So we can use our gradient texture to morph between these colors, where one of the color is this color and the other is this one. So, I mean, you could also just change the color of this, like this one, and then this. But it's much more powerful to do it the way I'm about to show you, because then you can use other types of textures or colors or whatever. So let's connect this to the surface here, and let's go Shift A and let's search for mix color. And now we can take our bottom color, plug it into B, and our top color, plug it into A. And then we can take our color ramp here and plug it into the factor. So now we have color A, color B, and we can use these color stops to change the colors. And this is just so powerful because we don't need to use colors. We can even use black body color temperature, for example. So if I, for example, set this to 2000, which is super warm, and then I duplicate it and set it to maybe 20,000, which is really cold. It might actually not be that cold. So you can search for hue saturation value node, and you can just crank up the saturation on this. So now we have like really cold on the outside and really warm on the inside. That is a really cool effect, I think. And the best part is it's still animated. So this just looks, it's a really fast way to make it look really good. Yeah. Okay, nice. Yeah, so now we have some options here. Let me just clean this up a little bit. So we have our gradient texture. I'm going to press Control J. Nope. What? How do you make the frame? Ah, it doesn't matter. Control Shift J. I don't know how to make the frame, but you're supposed to you're supposed to be able to make a frame around this. Excuse me. Okay, but this is the gradient. And then these are optional colors if you want to. This is cold, this is warm, this is to make the cold colder. And this is basically the color of our entire operation here. And then you have the texture down here. So now if you want to, you could go back here and you could do this one, for example, and you could add a different texture and you would still have the same color, which is very powerful. So it's super nice to break it up in these kind of two different aspects, I guess. Okay, but let's add a 3D model. Yeah, I'm just gonna join this down here so we can see this in full screen. I want to add a 3D model to this scene. So if we go to Polyhaven, which is a really nice website for free and Creative Commons 0 assets. Creative Commons 0 means you can actually put together a really nice blend file and send it to your friends, for example. And you don't need to make a list of where you got all the assets. So if you go to models, you can search for bust. There you go, marble bust, marble bust. And if you just download, you can download the entire blend file, where we'll get the 3D model and textures and everything. So if you click the folder here, then you can right click, 7-zip, extract to, and you get a folder. And what I like to do with stuff I've downloaded from Polyhaven is that I like to just open the blend file. Oh, Blender. Yeah, I'm going to open it to Blender 5.0. Hopefully that works. And then what I like to do is that I like to just take the object, and it has all kinds of stuff set up, and I like to just press Control C and copy it. So now you can see that's copied, and you can just close the blend file, and now it's stored in your clipboard. So if you go into your original project file here, and you press, yeah, let's just get rid of our cube first. If you press Control V now, you will paste this object. Now you can see you have this small bust here. And the materials and everything are set up. Here you can see you have everything set up just like it comes from that website. So now we can scale this up, for example. Nice. and I want to rotate it also. Sorry, my screencast keys keeps turning off, I mean. So if you scale is S and then G is G and R is R, yeah. Sorry, move is G and rotation is R. Yeah. So let's set up a lighting scene here. I think I want to make the light a little bit closer. Oh, sometimes you just make something and it looks like, oh, that looks cool. That I really love that about volumetric lighting. Very often in Blender, I feel like I have to tweak things for a really long time and then it looks good. But with volumetric lighting, it's just very often it's like, oh, that looks good. So that's a fun thing about this workflow. By the way, I'm not sure if you can see this, but if you just let this render for a little bit. Look at this. Can you see these details here? Oh, look at that. It's even worse now. Maybe I can increase the exposure so you can see it better. Yeah, if I go to the render properties, color management, and I increase the exposure here. Yeah, look at that. Here you can see you have this horrible denoising mess. So to get rid of this, we can go to our denoiser in the viewport and you can just disable the noise threshold. Look at that. Now you have this really smooth thing here. And you can also disable the noise threshold for the final render. So now if we lower our exposure back down again, it looks a lot smoother. But there are some denoising, really weird denoising happening inside the volumetrics here. That might be a Blender 5.0 setting I haven't figured out yet. Yeah, I'll have a look at that and leave a comment if I can find something that might be... I'm not sure, you can't probably even see it, but there are some noise here I haven't really seen before in Blender 4.5. It's like Blender 5.0 noise. Yeah, I will research that in my free time when I'm not making this video. And then if I figure something out, I will leave a comment or something. Okay, let's take our light here and let's move it back. We can set our transform pivot point to 3D cursor again. We can press R and then X and we can rotate it back a little bit. That looks so cool. And then right click, you can change the beam angle. That already feels really good. Feels really, really good. And then you can right click and you can increase the radius if you want to. Here you can see you can change basically the blurriness of the texture. And more technically, what you are changing is you're changing how big the light is. Here you can see in the UI, it might be difficult to see. Let's move over here and see if we can... Yeah, so now it's like infinitely sharp, but if you right click, increase the radius, it's like a larger source. So this is a really nice way if you want to break up the shadow, for example. Let's look at the shadow here. Here you can see the shadow is a little bit softer now, which looks so much better. But then if it's super sharp, it's like, even if you're all the way over here, it's like this really sharp shadow, which can be a little bit immersion breaking if you're obsessed with shadows. Soft shadow, I don't know. Yeah, let's set it to 0.01. What happens if I disable soft shadow? Oh, I haven't tried that. 0.2 maybe? No, I want the texture to be sharp as well. So let's do 0.1. Also, I just want to see, is there a problem with the denoiser, viewport denoiser? What happens if I set it to optics? Okay, that's much worse. Open image denoise. Still some, yeah, automatic high. Weird. If I'm being completely honest, it feels like Eevee. These artifacts feels like something you would see in Eevee. I don't know why. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Because I literally did the exact same project file like 15 times in Blender 4.5 and I've never seen this noise. There is some different type of noise in Blender 5.0. It could be a beta thing. I don't know. Oh, but look at this. Yeah, I really like this setup. By the way, what's really cool is that even if we have in the shader editor here, even if we have this power setting of the multiply node here, if we set it to 25, for example, this is actually still being possible to override. If you right click on the light and go adjust light power, you will override this setting. So if you go to the object data properties and the power here, you can set it to, yeah, instead of 4,000, you can set it to 40,000, and now it's much brighter. And this is kind of been multiplied with the existing power setting that we have here. Yeah, let me just zoom out so it's a little bit easier to see. So this is our current node tree. These are backup colors. So if you want to take a screenshot, you can do it. It should be a really sharp screenshot since I'm recording in this new format, which I'm very excited about. Yep. Okay. I think we should add a camera now. Yeah. So let's go Shift A, camera. And for our camera, I have a trick. This is going to be really cool if you haven't done this before. So let's select our camera. Let's go View, Align Active Camera to View. So now the camera is seeing what we're seeing. And you can right click. Nope, you need to select the camera. You can right click, just focal length, zoom out a little bit. And by the way, I should remember to save because I am using Blender 5.0 beta, so it might crash. So with the camera selected, I'm going to go to the object data properties. And under viewport display, I'm going to just increase the pulse bar 2. So now we're not rendering whatever is outside. We can only see this. And then we can press Ctrl W and set this to 3D viewport. So I think I want to have this as the camera. Yeah. So now this will be our viewport with the hotkeys in the corner. And then this will be our camera with only the viewport. Like this. Yeah, this is how I like to have it. Okay, so now we can... Oh, we have two cameras. Well, let's delete this one. Let's take our camera here. Let's view this from the side. By the way, if you want to view this from the side quickly, you can hold down Alt, and then you can just press middle mouse button and just go to the right, for example. And it will like instantly jump that way. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, but it's much better than clicking on this gizmo all the time. Like, you could do the same here. But if you hold down Alt and middle mouse button, this is also super nice if you don't have a numpad. And if you're on a laptop, for example. Okay, but the cool thing I wanted to show you about the camera is that these lines are like completely straight, right? But one thing that I found to be really cool is if we give it like a really subtle fisheye effect. And if you want to give it a fisheye effect, select the camera and you set the type from, or in the object data properties, under lens, you can change the type from perspective to panoramic. And now this looks super extreme right away. But that's because we have such a wide field of view. So the lens is by default set to 1050 for some reason. But if we click and zoom, yeah, it still has these soft stops. So you can just click and zoom to 15. If you set it to 16, now you can click and zoom to 20 and then 21. It's such a weird thing that this is still in Blender 5.0. Yeah. So if you set it to maybe 24, for example, and then let's just move our camera in the center here. I want to press Alt R and Alt G. And then you can move our camera here. Oh, I set the transform pivot point to median point, by the way. And because I used my secret add-on. It's the free add-on I'm working on. It's coming soon, but not yet. So set the transform pivot point to median point. Let's rotate the camera up here. Let's move it down. Look at that. Look at how majestic that is. And now, since we have a fisheye lens, these lines from the projector are kind of bent just a little bit. Which, it's not much, but it really helps to kind of like break up this CG look, I think. Very often you get like such a geometric vibe of watching perfect lines. Because most cameras actually, even no matter how expensive they are, they have just a little bit of lens distortion. And most of the time you have software correction. For example, this action camera here, if you use the software correction on this, it becomes really... good. The lens distortion is almost not there at all. It's pretty much perfect. But most cameras without any software distortion, they have just a little bit of lens distortion. So that's a really nice realism trick, is to just add a little bit of lens distortion. And if you want to go completely crazy, you can, instead of having it to panoramic, you can set it to, no, instead of having fisheye equal solid, you can set it to fisheye lens polynomial, for example. And this is crazy. If you start tweaking on this, field of view, nope, it's this one. Yeah, it's very subtle, but if I start moving these around, you can see now we have a little bit of a fisheye. But yeah, look at that. It's kind of, you can kind of create these pillow distortions, mustache distortions, all kinds of really subtle lens distortions. Yeah, so you can go crazy with this one, but I'm going to stick to the fisheye Equisolid because it's much faster to just dial in. And then also, if we set this back to solid view now, oh, it actually lines up perfectly. But sometimes when you set it to perspective, if you increase this to, for example, 9, and now you go back to panoramic, if you set this to render view, yeah, you can see that these aren't matched or these aren't paired up. So if you, let's say you set your panoramic lens to 65 millimeters and you look at this in render view, now it looks like this, but if you go back to object view, you need to go back to the perspective camera and update this as well. So it will be similar. So just keep that in mind. I mean, you could probably add a driver or something, but we're not going to start with that. So just be comfortable going back and forth between the perspective lens and the panoramic lens so the viewport looks correct, because it really sucks to dial in the lens in the viewport like this, and then you do the render and I'm like, oh, I forgot I was using the fisheye lens instead. So the fisheye lens is a little bit advanced, or it's a little bit on extra work. Just keep that in mind. Yeah, let's try and make this a little bit brighter. I think that's cool. Oh no, it's way too wide. We need to lower the beam angle. By the way, playing back this image sequence, it feels faster in Blender 5.0 than in Blender 4.5. Like, I've been testing this workflow thoroughly for many days now, and it feels very smooth now that I'm certain in Blender 5.0. That's really cool. And I think I'm using Vulkan, right? Yeah, I'm using Vulkan. So this is pretty much just the cycles. No, this is Blender 5.0 improvement. That's really cool. Does it look better if the warm color is coming after? I mean, if we swap these two, so you can hold down A1 and hold down Alt, and you get this swap icon, and you can swap these two. So, yeah, let's make it a little bit. Let's move the beam back a little bit. So let's press G and then Z again. You can move it on its local axis. No, let's keep it there. But I want to make the warm color come faster. So it starts out like this blue thing, and then it becomes warm. That looks nice. But it might be rotating a little bit too fast. Yeah, let's go back to this. Can we make it longer? Maybe 8 seconds until it loops. Set it to 2 cycles per loop. It's not really smooth. Ah, yes. Okay, I want to lower the size of this. I think that's better. Oh, so you also have a ring count. Yeah, let's keep it there. Okay, so I'm just going to export this again. And it's going to be a longer sequence now, 240 frames. But I think it will be better, because it was a little bit too zoomed in, I think. No, too zoomed out, I mean. Oh, this is going to be a long video. 38 minutes already. Not that long, but I'm glad that you're here if you're watching this. So, okay, so I'm downloading this and extracting this new one. And now what's really cool is that we can go back to Blender, take this frame 0000 here, and then click this little folder icon on it, on our spotlight. Click this folder icon. Let's go up one folder. And here you can see we can just sort it by whatever date we have. So we have, this is the newest one. If you double click on this, now you can select the first frame, press A to select all of them, and then open image. Yeah, and now, yeah, it's actually updates to 240 frames. That's good. So now you can see we have a little bit of a smaller grid there. I think that looks better. Nice. Maybe we should look at the texture. Yeah, let's have a look at the shader of this bust here. So I want to just get rid of this. Hold on Control and right click, and you can use this knife. And I want to just add my own shader. So let's go Shift A and just type SSS, subsurface scattering. And if you connect this to the surface here, if you set the radius to 0.1, for example, and then you can change the scale. Maybe 0.2 is good. Feels kind of soft. Let's look at it from here. I think that's good. Let's try 0.1, 0.4. Yeah, let's try 0.2. I think that feels like, it can also be like a candle vibe. And then I want to use a glass shader, no, a glossy shader as well. So let's go Shift A and just search for Add Shader. And then you can search for glossy shader as well. And you can connect the glossy shader to the other here. So now we get this. If you lower the roughness, let's make a little bit more room here. Look at that. We have this really chrome. I mean, it's too much, but I just wanted to show you. And you see it here as well. Very nice. Yeah, we can make it darker. Maybe we can add a Fresnel node. So search for Fresnel. And you can plug this into the color. And now you basically only have reflections when you're looking at it, which can really help getting a nice rim light and a silhouette there. There are definitely some denoising issues here. I'm considering rendering this out in Blender 4.5 instead of 5.0 because really weird specks of light here. That's just not there in 4.5. Really weird. Okay, one more thing I want to do. Since we already have access to these textures here, we have, there's a diffuse texture, or the albedo, and there's the roughness. No, maybe, yeah, it's just a mask. This is the albedo or diffuse. This is roughness, and then we also have a normal map. So I'm going to use the, oh, I shouldn't, yeah, I'm going to use the diffuse map. So let's just take this diffuse map and just pull it in to our subsurface scattering shader here. It might be a little bit too much. Maybe we can add a cramp node and we can pull this up. Yeah, so now we basically have this contrast slider here. I like that. This is super, let's just get rid of all the stuff we won't use. We won't use this either. And we'll probably not use the normal. Yeah. And maybe we can use the roughness as a displacement. So I'm going to search for this. You can actually search for height. And now you can take this roughness shader, plug it into displacement map into the height socket here. If you plug this displacement output into the material displacement, now we get this crazy, it's easier to see at the top here. Get this crazy, it almost looks disgusting a little bit. But if you lower this 0.5, look at that, you get like a really subtle kind of like a, it really helps with the glossy shader. Is the roughness on that? I think I also want to use a color ramp between the Fresnel nodes so we can make things a little bit more glossy in the middle as well. Yeah, so this is our glossiness now. I like it. We could go crazier with the displacement. It is a little bit difficult to see when we only have this, so let me just go Shift A, light area. And I'm just going to use this area light to learn a little bit more about kind of the shape we're working with here. Yeah, so now we can see that our displacement is a little bit too much. Maybe we can try using the color instead of the roughness. Yeah, that looks better. It looks really, really detailed when you get this. I mean, one thing I know would look really good is if we just got rid of the subsurface scattering node and we own, yeah, this looks really cool as well. Look at that. That is so, detail. It doesn't look really good, but it looks okay, I think. It's easy to get caught up in having too much displacement. Yeah, no, this looks really good. Yeah, maybe we can bring back the color from this one. So yeah, we can do that. If we go Shift A, mix color, and if you set this to color, then you can set the factor to 1, and you can pull the color from the original one in here, and we will get a little bit color back. But we can still use this one to control the contrast like we want to. Maybe there. Yeah, so just for your reference, here is our current node tree for the bust shader. So this is diffuse texture, and then this is the roughness. Just so you know. So you can take a screenshot in really nice quality if you want to. Okay. Very nice. Maybe we can make this a little bit more candlelight. I like it. Okay, so now we can get rid of this light here. Or maybe we can keep it like really subtle. If you... It kind of helps because now we can kind of barely see. Yeah. I like this. Let's move the camera in a little bit. Wait, the ground plane, we need a texture on that as well. So I want to scale up our plane a little bit. You can press S and scale it up, and then press Control A to apply the scale. So now we have this big plane here. Move it forward a little bit. And let's give this a texture. Yeah, let's go to the material properties, and let's select the ground plane. Let's click new material. Let's just call this ground. And I don't want to use the principal BSDF shader. I just want to go Shift A and search for diffuse BSDF. And then I want to add a texture to this. And I think the texture I want to add is also from Polyhaven. I want to add like this fabric texture. They have so many good fabric textures now because they recently opened up their fabric vault, I think. So denim fabric 06, this one is really nice. So, and I don't need to download this entire blend file. We only need to download some EXR files. So let's click this hamburger menu here, and let's just download the diffuse, I think. Yeah, I'm going to download that. And then also, maybe we can download displacement. Yeah, so these are much smaller. They're only a few megabytes each. So we don't need to download the entire blend file, so we're saving them some bandwidth. So, we don't even need to unzip them either. So if we select our ground plane now, the diffuse texture here, we can press Ctrl T, and let's take the image texture, open, and let's take our denim fabric diffuse. And look at that. That's too low resolution. Let's increase the scale. So here you can see you have the mapping node. If you want to, you can take, for example, the x-axis and increase the scale, or you can take the y-axis, or you can take all of them. So if you just click and drag down, and you can, for example, set this to 4. So now you have this really small fabric pattern here. Look at this. This just feels really cool. It feels like it's an actual stage, like a carpet thing, getting light on it. I really like that vibe. And here you can see when we're in the viewport, you have these really straight lines, but it really helps when we're using the camera. You get these really soft lines here. So let me just do something super quick. If I go to view here, and you can select your camera. Wait, how do you lock the camera? I don't know. They have changed the setting. This one? Nope. View lock. Camera to... Oh no, it's this one. Sorry. Camera to view. So now if I move around... Yeah, look at that. Now we can move around our scene and we can see through the fisheye lens. And you can actually see how this light is bending, which just really helps with the realism. And this also helps to kind of break up these patterns of this really geometric fabric texture here. So I'm a huge fan of these fisheye lenses. And if you think the fisheye effect is too aggressive, you can, as we talked about, you can either use this fisheye lens polynomial thing, and you can just Google some presets for what are like a realistic lens, or you can just use a higher focal length. Like if you go to like 70 millimeter, it's very subtle. The lens distortion is very, very subtle. Or not the lens distortion, but the barrel distortion. The barrel itself is much slimmer, I think. So let's view this from the front. Let's select our camera, and we need to turn off the camera to view on this one, so we're not making any mistakes. So let's select our camera, we'll press Alt-R, Alt-G, and I want to press G and move it over here. Just move it back to where it was. Yeah. So for our animation today, I want to kind of start out with our camera being back here, and I want it to kind of move closer like this. And it's just like going to be like a really creeping motion. It's really subtle, I think. So let's go back here. Press G and move it there. And then, you know, I could use my add-on to just add a keyframe like this, but I'm going to use add a keyframe using the K hotkey. And then I'm going to insert a location keyframe. And then if you hold down your mouse down here, you can press Control T, and you can see it in seconds. So let's say we want an 8-second animation. Yeah, this one. So if you press Control End, now we have an 8-second animation, and make sure you're rendering in 30 frames per second in the output properties. And now you select our camera and just move it, press G and move it forward just a little bit. So maybe here. And then K and insert location keyframe. So now our camera will kind of start back here, and will kind of just creep forward. Kind of difficult to preview this. No, let's make it more advanced, or more, let's exaggerate the animation a little bit. So let's set this to the graph editor. Let's press N to get rid of this. And here you can see our location keyframe. So if I select this one, you can press G and Y, move it up on the Y-axis, and you're basically moving the value of this one. So we want to start further back a little bit here, and then it kind of moves in. And then here you can see that we start back and then we kind of slow down. I want it to have the same speed all the time. So we can select the camera, press A in the graph editor to select all the keyframes, and then press Shift E, and then you can do linear extrapolation. So now our camera is moving like in a linear movement, which is nice. Yeah, I think that will be very nice vibe. Perhaps we can do a still render. Yeah, let's find a cool still image. Maybe here. Yeah, let's do a still render. So I'm gonna go, I mean, I could use my add-on, but sorry, I'm gonna use render image. Yeah, just 512 samples for now, I think is good. I'm also interested to see if we're gonna get the same denoising issues. It looks much better in the, yeah, this looks much better than in the viewport denoiser. Or does it? There are some weird stuff going on here. Let's go to the next frame. So frame number 70, and let's set this to slot 2. And then let's do another render image. And now we can compare these two. And I'm especially interested in this noise over here. It's going to be very interesting to see. Okay, so if I press 1, 2, if we zoom in here, 1, 2, oh, it's random noise. That is very bad. We might need to render this in Blender 4.5. And I need to figure out if there are some weird settings with the, yeah, this is not happening in Blender 4.5, I'll tell you that. If you can't see it, can I increase the exposure maybe? Yeah, if I increase the exposure here, I go back. Look at this. It's a really big difference in the noise. There's some weird noise here that was just not there in, and also here, it's only inside the volumetric. don't know why this is happening, because this was not happening in Blender 4.5, the previous Blender version. So I might need to render this out in the... Yeah, but I won't bother you anymore with this, because this is not something I'm going to be able to figure out today. Okay, now you can see that we have a little bit of an asymmetrical lighting here. There's like a little soft light here, and then we have this highlight here. So I think I want to make something similar. Not completely identical, but something similar on the other side as well. So let's take this side light here and press Shift D. Let's duplicate it, move it over here. And then maybe we can make this a little bit smaller. And a little bit weaker. So maybe 15 instead. And then how close can we get? Here maybe. Yeah, so we kind of like... We have like a similar vibe, but it's not... It's more like a filler light. Hang on, I want this to be smaller and I want this to be bigger. Yeah, just a... So it's basically a 3-point lighting at this point, since we have the rim light here and the... Yeah. I'm not that big of a fan of 3-point lighting. Okay, but now I think the bust looks better. If we hide our light there, like this bust kind of works in like the real darkness. And then, yeah, because I think a good silhouette still needs some lighting in the front there. Okay, sweet. And now we need to add some depth of field to this, because now everything is super sharp. So let's just find one of the eyes here. You can hold on Shift and then right click on one eye, for example. Our 3D cursor is now there. So now you can go Shift A, empty sphere. I'm going to press F2. I'm going to call this focus. So now if you right click, adjust empty display size. Now you just have this tiny object here, and we can set our camera to always focus on this. So let's select our camera, and let's go to the object data properties, depth of field, enable this, and just type in focus here, focus on object. So now if we zoom in here, this will be sharp, but the floor, yeah, let's increase the f-stop, maybe 0.1. Yeah, this is way too much. Maybe 0.5. That's better. If we move our camera up, we can see better what we're looking at here. I think that's good. Maybe 0.7. Okay, and now one more thing that might be really difficult to see, but if we zoom in here, you can see that there's this line in the denoiser. Can you see that? It's this one. This is because our plane kind of stops. Yeah, it's easier to see it here. Look at this line here. That is because our plane stops right there. And the denoiser just doesn't really like this change in geometry. So what I recommend that you do is to simply just make this plane into a cube. Because we don't need to see it, but we want it to just cover our entire scene. So select your plane, press Tab to go to edit mode. Then you can press E to extrude it and just extrude it upwards like this. So now our entire scene is like inside this box. So now if you view this from the camera again, you can see that inside this box, there's no longer this line. And it shouldn't really affect your scene because our ground is so dark. So, but if you zoom out too far, you can see we get outside the box. So if you, for example, working in object view here in solid view, you can select your plane, you can go to the object properties, and if you go down to visibility, viewport display, set it display as wire instead. So now we can see our objects in the scene here. Very good. Okay, nice. I think we're getting ready to render this out as an animation. You know, one thing we could do, yeah, I think we're going to do that. We could make like a tripod to make this light actually stand on something. I think that's a fun, like, cool modeling project. Yeah. So let's go Shift A and mesh cube. I'm just going to call this, press F2 and call this tripod. And now we can move this back here. Press tab to go to edit mode, S to scale it down. Nope, we need to set our transform pivot point back to median point. Tab to scale it down. And if you select these vertices on the top here, you can press G and Z and move it up. So now we have this kind of long thing. And we can use this to make a tripod. So I want to place this in a separate collection. So let's press M to make a new collection. Click new collection, and let's just call this tripod. Or what's the best term? No, tripod is good. Create. And now you can press 1 to see this collection, and you can press 2. They changed. I don't like that change. You used to be able to press 1 and 2 to select the collections. That is an extremely unfortunate change. I don't like that at all. I hope that's a bug. Because now how do you change the collection? You need to go up here all the time. Can someone help me with that? Is that the new normal now? We need to change the collection by going up here and just clicking on these. I don't like that. I'm usually very positive to Blender changes, but removing the hotkey to change the collections, that is extremely... This has been in Blender for 20 years, I think. They wasn't called collections before. They were called like layers, but yeah, or layers. I don't know. Wow, that made me sad actually. Huh. Okay. I'll see if there's a workaround or what the hotkey is. Shift 1, Shift 2, Control. No, that Control 2 is subdivision. Yeah, that's stupid. Okay, I'll have to figure out what the new workflow is, because that is a very... We can't be clicking the collections. I very strongly disagree with that. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so let's hide our regular collection. I'm going to call our collection just scene, and let's just hide that for now. We can disable it even, exclude from view layer. So now we're going to be modeling a little bit. So let's press Control Space to full screen this. And I want to press Tab to go to edit mode. You can press Control R to add a loop cut. Pull this up here. And now if you press 3, we have face select instead. We can select this face. And we can press E to extrude it out. So now we have like this long tripod. Or what we could do is that we could actually press I to insert a face here. And then press E to extrude it again. So now it looks like it's kind of made to be extended a little bit. I think that's good. Yeah, I think it's too wide. I want to just press 1 and then Alt Z to view through it. And then if you view this from the top, let's just take these and move it in a little bit. Yeah, and then we could do Shift S, cursor to selected, Tab to go back to object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and then Alt G. Okay, apparently that's where, yeah, there it is. Okay. So now we have this tripod thing. Maybe we need to add, yeah, let's take this, duplicate it and move it like, that's good. It can't just stand like this. We need to actually have the legs. So maybe if we use a cube and we rotate it 45 degrees, is that good? Yeah, it's there now, by the way. We need to look up there. I usually look there, but it's there. I like that. Let's place it there. Let's view it from above. And if you set the pivot point to 3D cursor, you can press Shift D, R, and then 120. And then just press Shift R to do that one more time. So now we have a tripod. And I want it to poke out below a little bit. And then I also want to add some spheres. So let's go Shift S, cursor to selected with the select, and go Shift A, icosphere. There we go. Oops, shade auto smooth. I want to scale this down. Oh, let's select these. Let's select our sphere by pressing L, and then if you view this from above with the 3D cursor set to these 3 points, we can press Shift D R 120. Oh, that doesn't line up. Okay, we'll just tweak it. Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect because it needs to be a little bit better than that because yeah, you need to set it to individual origins. So now we should be. Yeah, okay, so now we have like this basic tripod here. Sweet. Oh, let's add a cable as well. Because we want the light to be here. It should be... Our light should have like a... It should have like a ball. Yeah, so, sorry. Oh, I went on autopilot there. If you have this ball, you can press L to select it. You can press E to extrude it, and then Alt-S. No, wait. E to extrude, and then escape, and then Alt-S. And then make it go in like that. So now you can... we can place our light in here, if we want to. And then right-click, set the shading to auto-smooth. Yeah, so now this will be... Our light will be in here. Maybe we should actually have this as a separate object. Yeah, let's press L to separate it, or let's press P, I mean, to separate selection. And then if you press tab, you can take this point at the top here, Shift S, back to object mode. And if you set the origin to 3D cursor, now we have this thing here. Okay, nice. So let's add a cable. I'm going to go Shift A, curve Bezier. And you can press tab to go to edit mode, X to delete the segments. And if you view this from the side, like here, you can go Shift Space and you can go down to, nope, Shift Space and go down to draw. And now we have this draw tool, so we can draw like a curve. So if it goes out here, it goes around and down like this. Oh, I messed up. Yeah, and you can press W to go back to the regular tool, or you can just click this one here. So now we have this curve that will be laying on the ground. If you want to give the curve thickness, you can select the curve, go to the object properties, no, object data properties, and then geometry, and then increase the bevel depth. Look at that, now it's like a cable. And then we just need to go through and make sure it's not intersecting. Or it is intersecting, but we're going to make it go around. Like this. Nice. And it's a little bit low poly, so we can go to the top of the object data properties and just crank up the resolution preview. But now it doesn't look like it's attached. Oh, we need to like move it to the side, maybe here. And then, oh, we don't have enough vertices. Yeah, so let's take these two, right click, subdivide. And we can move this. Yeah, it's basically just this tweaking exercise where you need to kind of move it around. This actually takes a while to figure out if you haven't done it before. But it's one of those things when, if you've done it, it's like, it gets way easier. So I want to subdivide these, and then we can see what side do we go to. Yeah, we go to this side. There we go. Yeah, nice. I'm using probably too much time on this because it's just supposed to be like a background detail. But it's a little bit meditative to just kind of tweak these things. And you can probably hear my mouse and keyboard really well. Just, I mean, I do have a new keyboard, so I'm happy about that. But I have some, like, sometimes when I press the letter R, Yeah, of course now it's not happening. But sometimes when I type the letter R, it types the letter 2 times. So I'm not really sure what to do about that. Maybe you have some tips. It's a, my keyboard is a Keychron Q something, QM. I don't know. It's like it's 100% size Keychron Q something. Yeah, and then when we have these things at the bottom here, if you view this from above, you can just kind of give it some movement like this. There's our cable. Okay, nice. That actually looks really good. It looks like it's a light which is on this tripod. Hang on, where is the? I made it this one, right? Oh, it's gone, or is it in the? Wow, I must have dreamt that. Okay, we'll just take this one then. Nice. Okay, maybe we can add a bevel modifier just to. Does that even work? Yeah, and make it really subtle, so we get maybe some highlights here and there. Okay, so this is our tripod, and then let's call this cable. And if we bring back our scene, set this to rendered view. Oh, now we can't see this anymore because, yeah, we need to move our back here. And then we move, no. Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to take this little object here and I want to parent it to the light. So I can just move the light. So I just place it here. If I take this kind of cap, I just select this one, hold on shift, select the light. And I could use my add-on, but I'm going to press Control P, parent. Okay. So now we can rotate this and it will follow. Very cool. And we can't even see this, so perhaps we can move it to the side. Yeah, nice. Okay, we need to make this darker. The tripod. So let's make it the new material. Tripod. I'm going to set the surface to mix shader. I'm going to set the first shader to diffuse and the second one to glossy. And then we can just make the diffuse really dark. Like this maybe. And then we lower the roughness of the glossy. So it's just this really subtle thing. And then for the cable, we're going to give it the same material. So I'm going to give it the tripod, but I'm going to duplicate it and call it cable. And then this can be even darker. And then this can be even rougher. No, less rough. Yeah. I want it to be so dark that I don't need to texture it. Sweet. Now we have a tripod. Okay, nice. Let's do a still render and see. So, yeah, let's go render image. It actually makes me really sad that they changed the hotkey for viewing the collections. I definitely need to figure out. If I'm being completely honest, I should probably research what updates there have been to Blender 5.0. Because so far it's... I've only been disappointed so far, I think. No, it is faster with the previewing of the texture. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so the texture is like, it has a faster viewport performance than 4.5. But there are some really weird denoising artifacts that I just... It's going to be such a big problem that I don't have to go back a version of Blender. So that's not good. And then also they removed the hotkey that I'm using probably 200 times a day. So I definitely need to figure out a way to fix that. So far Blender 5.0 is actually one step forward and 2 steps back for me. But I will, yeah, as I said, I need to research more what's going to be the improvement with Blender 5.0, because it's a good number. It's a big number. I think that's it's going to be a good update. Oh, this hasn't gotten a material yet. Let's give this the tripod material. That's very good. Yeah, I think we're ready to render this out as a video. Oh, let's do a... No, can we... I don't like saying that sentence, that I'm going to render it out as a video, because every time I say that, I'm like, oh wait, I just need to fix this one thing. So if you're watching my videos and you're being frustrated that I'm always doing stuff after I've said I'm going to render it out as a video, you're probably not alone. Probably also other people, me included, that think it's a little bit stupid. We could do a... Yeah, let's try and just do a render that has a lot higher sample count. What frame was this? Frame 69. Yeah, let's do a frame 69 and let's see. So if I render now, we can see on 2000 samples, we can see if there's going to be a any artifacts, any issues. By the way, the thing I did with the box around the scene to just get rid of that denoising line, that box might actually introduce more render time because the light is bouncing up in the box and down again. So if you want to get like a lower render time, you could add a material to the walls, or you could like make like walls and ceiling and give that like a maybe a holdout material. Not sure if that works, but at least a diffuse material with just 100% darkness. That should be a way to get rid of that denoising line that you see. I think this is looking really cool when you get this strong light on the... Maybe this could be even more reflective, because I think that's a lot of fun. But yeah, we might be running into more denoising artifacts then, because that's also been an issue under 4.5, that the denoiser is struggling with the way I'm using the displacement shader. I should probably be using normal maps, but I almost always prefer the look of the displacement shader. Okay, so this is 2000 samples. Let's see if we have the exposure here. Let's crank this up. Yeah, this is 2000 samples. And it's still very noisy. Yeah, 500 sample, 2000. I would go as far as considering there's a bug, actually, with Blender 5.0 now. So I don't think I can recommend rendering volumetrics in Blender 5.0 at this stage. There is simply I think there's some sort of precision something. I don't know. As I've said probably 4 times already in this video, I will have to investigate this when I've stopped recording. Or if you can figure out a solution to this, what is wrong with the denoiser in Blender 5.0 when you're rendering with volumetrics, please let me know, because I am I can pin your comment if you found a solution. I think we have too much depth of field, because look at this, it just completely disappears. Texture here. Look at this. Yeah, I think I prefer it when it's a little bit sharper. So let's select our camera. Depth of field, let's do 1. I think that's better. The camera needs to be a little bit more alive. I'm gonna add just a little bit more, I'm gonna add just a little touch of camera shake. It's not really a shake, it's more like a float. I like to add always like some camera floating. So I'm gonna go empty plane axis, I'm gonna press F2, I'm gonna call this camera point of interest. So this empty object will be a point of interest for the camera. So let's select our camera, hold down Shift and select this empty object, and press F3 and search for track to constraint, this one. So now we can move this object and our camera will always look at it. So if we move this down a little bit, yeah, we want our camera to start even further back, I think. That's good. Maybe slow down a little bit. I think our animation should stop at 8:06 instead of 8. Because there's something about the light just kind of falls down in a satisfying way. Okay, so let's... our scene is too dark actually. We need to increase the power of the light. Maybe make it wider. No, I like it like that. Okay, hang on, what was I supposed to do? Something with the camera? Yeah, the camera shake or camera float. Yeah, let's select our camera point of interest. Let's go to the first frame and let's press K and insert a location keyframe. And then you can open up this menu here in the graph editor and take the X location, for example. Press N to bring up this panel here. Let's go to modifiers and let's add a noise modifier. And let's set the scale to something high, like 65, and the strength to maybe 0.1. Let's just see here. Yeah, look at that. It's kind of going a little bit from side to side. Do you see? It's going a little bit from side to side with random movement, which is enough for our camera to get like a little bit of a, we are on a gimbal or something like that, which is such an efficient, yeah, if you fast forward through here, you can definitely see the camera going like a little bit. It doesn't need to be much. So I want to set the face here to like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you copy this and you go to the Y location, you can paste this. You can set the face to maybe 2 something. It's a little bit like that. And then copy and then Z. No, 3. Yeah, so now it's like this very subtle, just sliding towards here. Which, and this, you might think this is really subtle and it doesn't really matter that much. This is one of the biggest improvements I see to a scene. If a scene has like a camera that goes like this, just super linearly, super flat like this, compared to something that just has a little bit of life, just a little bit of subtle movement. It can be literally any type of movement, just a little bit of something. It's night and day, and it's so weird because it's super subtle. So I just don't understand how it works. But maybe there's some reference that we are never seeing cameras in real life that behave like that. We are always seeing cameras that are moving in some way. Like every cinematic shot ever has that. Okay, let's do a still image. Yeah, render this. It's going to take a while to render this animation, I think. One image takes 1 minute. And it's actually going to take longer because I usually render on my other computer. I have on this computer I have the RTX 4090, but on my other computer, which is in my office, it's like I don't pay the electricity bill there. So so there I have my computer, like I can render overnight, for example. And that has a 4080, which is maybe 25 to 30% slower than the 4090. So that means that if this takes 1 minute and 10 seconds, it's probably going to take 1.5 minutes per frame on my computer. So this will probably be, what's that, 200 and... If you use 1 minute on 300 frames, that's 9 hours, right? Or, yeah. So 200, maybe 8 hours. Maybe, no, it will be longer since we have... No, it will probably be close to 9 hour render on a 4080. I think that's okay. It looks really cool, I think. I really like this. You know what we could do? Just to test the difference between Blender 4.5 and Blender 5.0. I could just do a still render from each of the versions and then compare them with a difference matte. Yeah, I'm going to do that before we start the final render. Just so we're all on the same page that something has changed with the denoiser in Blender 5.0. No one probably cares, but it's important to me. So, I mean, if you watched 1 hour and 24 minutes into a video and you don't care, that's weird. But if you do care and you are here, that's awesome. I really appreciate that you're watching this entire video. In fact, if you watched so long into the video, I want to give you a little bit of a gift. So this Blender add-on I've been using, the quick trigger pi menu, it's actually up on my GitHub. If you go to my GitHub and you search for hang on, let me show you, qt-pi. If you search for this on my GitHub, you will find my Blender add-on, which I'm about to release. It's going to be a free add-on, so yeah. And you can try it. It's a really cool way to just move all of the hotkeys from the right side of the keyboard over to the left side. So I'm still working on a video on kind of like showing the purpose of the add-on, but it's basically just a replacement of the quick favorites menu. And so far in the add-on, I haven't really found a way to add custom entries, so you will be stuck with these entries, but trust me, these are very important entries to have access to with the hotkey Q. Yeah. Okay, what was I supposed to do? Yeah, I'm going to render out the frame. I'm going to compare it to Blender 4.5. So if we do, what's a good frame then? Maybe exactly 3 seconds. Yeah, so frame 90. Okay. So I'm going to do a still render. I'm going to save this still render of frame 90. And then I'm going to open up Blender 4.5, which I have it here. And I'm very excited to see if I'll be able to open the project file. So, file open, texture projector, open, something, expect loss of data. It doesn't matter. We can try this anyways. Geometry Nodes Essentials. Oh, it's just an asset pack, right? No, yeah, it's some Geometry Nodes preset. I'm never going to use those anyways, or not going to use those. Oh, we don't have the playhead anymore. We need to set this to... There we go. What frame was it? This frame, yeah. So I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-S. I'm just going to call it 4.5 LTS. So we're going to save this. And then, yeah, this is probably rendering, so I'm not going to render 2 at the same time. That will be stupid. Let me just see here if there's... how the denoising is going. Yeah, it actually looks really good until you do the denoiser. Hang on. That probably means I could denoise it in Blender 4.5 and do the main render in 4. No, that doesn't matter because... No, I'm stupid. It doesn't... Why would I need to do that? Okay, so I'm going to save this as an EXR image. Image, EXR, DWAB. Perhaps we should do a zip just to get it lossless. Yeah, let's do that. Float full. I'm going to call this test denoise frame 90 Blender 5.0 beta. Little b 5.0 beta version 1. Save as image, and then let's go to Blender. I hope this looks... Oh, it works nice. So now if you render this with the same settings, denoise, let's just see here. I'm very excited about this, if this will work. Yeah, and I can also just set up this a third project file where we are using the compositor. Yeah, we don't need this. We can set this to be the compositor. New. Yeah, compositor nodes. And then we can set this to be viewer node. So now if we input our image from our desktop, denoise frame 90. Yeah, okay, so here we can see it. Exposure. Okay, so here we can see our noise. And now I'm going to use a color mix. I'm going to set it to difference. So we'll be able to see literally every single pixel. That is the difference between those two. So if we go to... Wait, what Blender version is this? 5.0. Okay. Oh, it does say it in the corner, but you can't see it. Okay, so now this one. Look at this, the denoising. Look at that. Let me increase the exposure. I'm not crazy. I'm so glad I'm not crazy. If we increase the exposure here, look at that. There's no noise at all. It looks amazing. But in Blender 5.0, that looks really messy. So if I save this, OpenEXR, zip, float, denoise, frame 90, Blender 4.5 LTS version 1. Okay, so now we can compare these. Let's import an image, this one, and if we compare these now with the exposure, oh, it's a lot. Okay, so there's some. Oh wait, I should save the. I'm so glad I remember that. I should save the noisy image as well. Noisy. That's very clever. I should probably just save the multi-layer and look at all the passes, but I don't have. I don't want to use multi-layer. Noisy image, and now let's save it as EXR. Nope, not multi-layer. Just zip full noisy. There we go. Okay, so now let's also import the noisy images. You're in this with me now, by the way. So if I'm wrong, you can be my witness. Okay, is that the deal? Noisy frame 90 LTS image. Noisy from 95.0. Okay, so let's compare these two then, because these should be similar. Please. They're not similar. No, they're not identical. Wait, is it updating? Viewer node. Let me just see. So this should be black. Yeah, this is black. Okay, so we can't really do the test because the underlying render engine seems to be different. The way Blender renders volumetrics is different in Blender 4.5 and 5.0. So what we're supposed to see here is that when, hang on, how do I do this? Yeah. So, okay, just to tell you what you're looking at here, every black pixel is the same image. So we're looking at the two noisy images from Blender 5.0 and Blender 4.5. So we have two noisy renders. These two are noisy renders, just a raw render from the camera. And every black pixel here is where the images are identical. But every pixel where the image, if we set this to 5, for example, every pixel where there is a change, this is exaggerated with exposure set to 5, but every pixel where there's a change, that is how these are different. So we're using a different map here. So yeah, it's weird to see that they're probably doing some cycle speed ups or something like that is happening in Blender 5.0 that I don't know how is happening. So that is probably why our denoised images are also different. So here now you can see we're comparing the. Okay. Oh, this is so stupid. I'm so stupid. Sorry, I need to render out those multi-layer. Yeah, that's really dumb. Because obviously, even if I change this to the noisy image, it still saves the image with the noise. That's so dumb. I'm so stupid. Yeah. But anyways, it does prove that there is a difference between the denoised image in. Look at that. Here you can see the differences. Value. If I take both of these in here. Here you can see the difference. Wow, that's actually a super cool pattern. That looks. Yeah, okay, this is interesting. So this is the difference between an image that was rendered in Blender 4.5 and an image that was rendered in Blender 4.5. And here you can see you have these really weird shapes in the denoising. And just to be clear, here is here is what the noisy area looks like in 5.0. Here is what it looks like in 4.5. So there's way less noise in 4.5 when you're rendering with volumetrics. Look at that. So yeah, so I'm gonna render my animation in Blender 4.5 for now, and then if you know what the difference could be, like what's happening here, please let me know. I would appreciate that. So yeah. Oh, sorry. But I think this image actually looks kind of good. So yeah, I'm gonna render this out as an animation. I think our final render will look very good. This looks really cool actually. So what software am I in now? 5.0. Okay, so I'm gonna close 5.0 and I'm gonna render this in 4.5. So I'm glad I didn't uninstall that yet. Okay, so that means that you will be able to see the final render and then the video ends, because I'm not gonna, yeah, I'm gonna render the video, I'm gonna stitch it at the end of this and then you will see it. So if you watch this entire video, oh, sorry, thank you so much for watching. This was a new format for me. It's basically like a live stream, but I'm not talking with anyone, except I'm just imagining what people would ask. And in my mind, this was an improvement, because when I'm live streaming, I'm just always reading a comment and I'm like completely incapable of not thinking about that comment. So I'm just completely derailing all the time. So hopefully this video was more coherent. I'm not saying it was coherent, but it was more than when I live stream. So if you watch this entire video, I really appreciate that. And this project file will be available on my Patreon on the advanced project file tier if you want to check that out. But there are also free project files on my main channel video if you want to just learn the basic setup of using a video texture as a projector. And also one thing, just super quickly before I end the video, one thing that I didn't cover in this tutorial is that this video texture here, it's easier to see if we view it from here. This video texture is being cropped by the edges of this spotlight here. And this happens because we haven't done the trick where you need to kind of lower the scale and then do this thing and then set this to clip. So basically this is what your nodes should look like. The mapping node should look like this, and the frame should be set to clip instead of repeat if you want to use a texture that should not be clipped by the projector. But for this animated pattern generator, it's okay that these are like this. Yeah. And then also, if you're using a video texture that has a different aspect ratio than square, you can select your light, go to the object properties, not object data properties, and you can scale it on the x-axis. Excuse me. Scale it on the x-axis with the aspect ratio of the video file. So for example, if it's a 16:9 video, you can go 16 divided by 9, and you will get 1.77778, which is the correct aspect ratio. Or if you have a vertical video, that's 9 divided by 16, and you will get a vertical video, I think. Yeah. So now I'm going to render this out as an animation. Thank you for watching this video. I don't have anything else to say. I'm just going to show you the final render. Support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching.